Hi guys, I've just done a video on disease which I described in that video as perhaps the most important video that I'll ever make because of all of the compelling evidence for the likelihood of the prevalence of dread disease on epidemic scale among us under the circumstances which Sina van Rensburg described. There is no argument to be made against the argument that I presented. There is no suggestion anywhere that we'll have a superabundance of doctors or that we will have ready access to abundant modern medicine. Nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying, yeah, don't worry about a thing. We'll be getting shiploads of the stuff from China, or anything. Nobody's saying, yeah, but our hygiene and sanitation is going to be just ideal. 300,000 people. That's just a number, by the way. It's a number I just sucked out of my thumb. Please don't take it as some sort of an insight into Suidlanders' senior leadership's belief or understanding of how many people shall participate in the National Emergency Plan. It's just a number. 300,000 people living on the banks of the Orange River in caravans and tents and under makeshift shelters without pre-prepared abundant potable water systems or sewerage systems. No. So what is my point? Because this video is about something else entirely. My real point is that it was a very long video and I have a runny nose and I hate runny noses so much that there's one of the top, in fact, I would say that there is nobody in that field who would suggest that this guy on YouTube is not the top guy in his field. So all of his peers would say he's the number one dude on YouTube in this field. I don't watch him because he has seems like a congenital runny nose. It revolts me that much. So this long-winded intro is by way of apology for that video so long. There's not much you can do. Over 50 minutes you're going to be, it's running. I really apologize. It's absolutely revolting. I hate it, but I just felt that I had to make the video. I've been ill for a couple of days. Not flu or anything like that, not related to the runny nose. It was food poisoning. On Monday, today being Wednesday the 9th of November, I wasn't hungry when I woke up, so I got dressed and ready to do videos, and then I thought to myself, I know what I'm like. I'll start the videos, I'll get hungry, and then I'll just be sidetracked, because I love eating. I'm not the size that I am because I've got some like metabolic problem. I chow like a horse. So I went to the shops ostensibly to get porridge, oats porridge, because I'd run out, and I ended up getting Viennas, those dinky chicken Viennas. You've seen those small packs, kind of a new product, I think. And there must have been something wrong with them because I had them on toast, and within 15 minutes of eating them, I started to feel queer, and 40 minutes later I was in bed for almost the whole day. By the evening the pills had taken good effect, and I was okay, but then the next day, that's to say yesterday, Tuesday, boom, back again. And today I'm quite a lot better. But the real point is that I felt I need to do this video on disease. I've been sitting on it for a long time. And I haven't done work over the past couple of days, and we've just gotten back into the saddle, back into the swing of things, back on the bicycle regarding the video making after many, many unbelievable obstacles and obstructions for about 9 months. I mean, just incredible. It was one thing after another. So much so that, in my opinion, it was spiritual. End of story. There's not that level of accidental coincidence in one sphere. Sommer. Anyway, so I felt I must push myself today, with the result that I did that video with a runny nose. And now we're going to change tack. The time now is, we're 5:55 in, so I'm going to put in the description that people can skip to 6 minutes if they don't want to hear my long-winded apology for my runny nose. What are we talking about? We're talking about the United States midterm elections. This is not going to be the last time that we talk about it. I've got an interview in an hour. I must pull finger. So, what is the story? In the middle of every presidential term in the USA, exactly 2 years following the election of the president, every time, there's 4 years, the presidential cycle in the USA is 4 years long. Not like in South Africa where it's 5. In the middle, they hold what are called midterm elections, which are just the same, it's not for the president, but just the same as the rest of the presidential elections. So if you watch the elections of Joe Biden, then you know that I think Tuesday the 6th of November 2020, you know that it wasn't only about Joe Biden. There was Senate races and House of Representative races and other races to governorships and so on. And others too, by the way. More local. But because of the many states in the USA, there are 50 states, there are 48 contiguous states. In other words, they're all connected one to another, or connected via one to another. They form one contiguous block. And there are 2 non-contiguous states. Alaska, which borders on Canada, not the USA, and Hawaii, that's in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And then there are territories like Guam and Puerto Rico and other places. But yeah, to cut a long story short, the states, and other things as well, but this makes it easier to understand, were not all incorporated on the same day. So there had already been a few presidents and a few congresses when, let's say, for argument's sake, Alabama was incorporated into the USA as one country. It was its own place, doing its own thing. And they said, yeah, okay, we'll become part of the federal system. We'll join up with you. We'll make one big team. We'll be 50 states in the end. Right now you're only 24, but we're going to join you. We're going to be 25, number 25. Because that didn't happen always at a convenient moment in history, there is a historical legacy whereby some of the elections are held not on the day of the presidential elections and when all of the other elections are held. They give them a couple of years and then it's their turn. And that comes from a long time back, when they were being incorporated on inconvenient dates. A year and 3 months after the previous election. So how are we going to choose our senator now? Who are we going to send to the Senate? We didn't get a chance to be in the elections. Okay, wait, give it a few months, and then you and Texas and Oklahoma, you're all in the same boat. You can have your elections, and you send your dudes to the Senate and to the Congress, to the House of Representatives, which together are called the Congress. The Congress of the United States of America is the Senate and the House of Representatives together. Okay, so those elections are held in the middle of this 4-year period, but that doesn't mean that this is just FYI. It's not going to make much difference to anything. That doesn't mean that those terms are 4 years. In some cases, they are 6 years. So it's very higgledy-piggledy. It's a bit of a I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't. If I felt the need to criticize America or Americans, I'd freely do it. But genuinely, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just a product of the kind of messy way that the USA was put together, which was unavoidable because they were different territories and states and what have you. Louisiana, for example, was bought from the French. Texas was stolen from Mexico. It's just as simple as that. It was stolen, end of story. You can like it, you can not like it. That's what happened. Alaska was bought from the Tsar of Russia. So yeah, it's higgledy-piggledy and messy and clumsy, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's just one of those things. Anyway, so the midterm elections that happened yesterday, Tuesday the 8th of November, would have granted the opportunity for power in the Senate and in the House of Representatives to change hands, for the Republicans to assume control. And it was universally accepted that it's a de facto thing. The Republicans are going to win so many of the seats that are up for grabs in the Senate, and so many of the seats that are up for grabs in the House of Representatives, that they are, as a matter of certain fact, going to have control of the Senate and the House of Representatives. The Senate, every state in the USA, the 50 states, gets to send 2 senators to the Senate, regardless of how big it is, the state, or how populous it is. Meaning that there are 100 senators. And the Senate was narrowly controlled by the Democrats, and it was almost what the Americans call a shoe-in. A shoe-in. I think it's when you use a shoehorn to fit a pair of gentlemen's shoes tight. You know, just use that shoehorn and it's okay. I don't know where it comes from. A shoe-in. It was a certainty. Just got to put your foot there and push a little bit and you've got the shoe on. And likewise, the House of Representatives, which is the lower house of the Congress. We've already discussed the Senate, and the House of Representatives form what the Americans call the Congress. The Senate is the senior house, the upper house. The House of Representatives is the lower house. Now, the House of Representatives has, I think, 435 members. And that works according to population and size of states. But it's not a pure science. It's somewhere between an art and a science. Call it a craft, if you like. So I'm keeping this very simple so that this doesn't become a 670-minute video. Some states have, I think, as few as 3 representatives, and I think California, if I'm not mistaken, California and Texas have 30 odd, roughly. Now, and this is very, very, very important. If you want to understand this, it's vital. that you hear what I'm about to describe to you. We received intelligence, Suidlanders received intelligence in June or July of 2020 that there was a leak from an admiral in intelligence in the USA who was dying. He was on his deathbed, lung cancer or something. God forbid it. And he got hold of a chummy of his, said, listen, come over. Maybe his wife, who knows. And the guy went and sat at his deathbed, and that admiral said, get the word out. The Democrats are going to steal the elections. And now that I'm dying, I and my fellow white hats, excuse me, a white hat is somebody who does something illegally. It comes from the hacking community. An ethical hacker is a white hat. So I and my fellow white hats, the goodies in the intelligence community, cannot stop this thing, it seems. So you need to get the word out. And he described to his friend that the Democrats would use two things, a software called the Hammer, and, a hardware, a computer called, a supercomputer kind of thing, called the Hammer, and software called the Scorecard. Then we Suidlanders got intelligent. We have some very good contacts. I'm not saying they're the best in the world and that I know the King of England and I have tea with the Shah of Persia, but we have some remarkably good contacts. Then we heard that the Democrats had spent a week roughly conducting an exercise called the Transition Integrity Project, which was all about ensuring that the Republicans could not dispute or, let's say, effectively dispute the results of the elections. Then we knew. Then, when this becomes very relevant later on in the story, when Joe Biden was absent for some time, absent from the scene in the run-up to the elections for the first time ever, here Joe Biden is competing against his rival Donald Trump, but he's nowhere to be seen. Huh? How are you going to win like that? It came out, again, long before the newspapers, from friends of ours in the USA, that he was suffering, I must get this right, mid-stage Alzheimer's, I believe is what we were told. Right. And that they couldn't afford to expose him. They would bring him out every so often. There's a certain particular drug that you can give to these patients that makes them alert and lucid for short periods of time, but it has the side effect that afterwards they're worn out. You know, it uses up their brains. It's like, I know nothing about cars and engines, nothing whatsoever. But I'll never forget somebody explaining to me in my ignorance how he couldn't, I said, he had like a hydrogen thing on the engine of his car. Is it hydrogen, nitrogen? Who knows? And I said, oh, why don't you use it all the time? I was young, like 21. I said, no, it wrecks the engine. It reduces the lifespan of the engine. So you perform well for 15 minutes and then, so you've got to be, so apparently that drug does the same. It makes you absolutely alert, but afterwards you're worse off than you were before. It consumes, as it were, too much of your brain, or consumes your brain. So, we then, after considering it for some time, we arrived at the certain conclusion. Okay, the other thing was Kamala Harris as his running mate. Why Kamala Harris? She was the first one kicked out of the Democratic primaries. She got 1% support. And to save her face, she got out of the race. She is disliked. It's not that few people like her, she is disliked. She is a very much disliked person, disliked woman. Why did he choose her? And we then realized that there's no ways that the Democratic National Committee or the Democratic National Convention, I forget the correct meaning of the C in DNC, couldn't have done that by accident. So what would be the motive for doing it on purpose? There are only two possible motives. One, you want to fail. You deliberately want to fail. You want voters not to vote for this presidential candidate because his running mate as vice president is deplorable, horrid to most people. The other is to ensure that that person, that is to say the running mate, the vice president, Kamala Harris, becomes the president at some point in time. And we began to talk about it a lot. You may not have seen a video, you may not have been part of those conversations, but I can assure you that I discussed this with very capable people, senior Suidlanders, Mr. Miller actually, Mr. Miller's the one person, and numerous people in the United States of America. I said, guys, you can bet your bottom dollar I have rationalized this thing. I don't know everything, I'm not the cleverest, but I have put that much thought into this thing that I can tell you now as a matter of certainty that this is the plan. They're putting in that idiot in there because he's electable. They're going to use the Transition Integrity Project, the hammer and the scorecard, to cheat the elections. And he will be at least credible. It will be half credible that he could maybe possibly have won. At least credible enough for the mainstream media to exploit that lie. Then he will act as a Trojan horse for her to become the president later on. Now, on the 22nd of January this year, a report was published that was subsequently leaked. A report by the Rand Corporation. And it has since been disputed among the chattering classes, the hoi polloi, people like me, just run-of-the-mill people on the internet. I didn't dispute it, but people like me. But not by the Rand Corporation or anybody of serious authority and stature and role in the world. Not one. I'm telling this story a bit back to front. I'll give you the reason. That we, Suidlanders, believe, that Mr. Miller and I have discussed it very great length. Because they were afraid that what was leaked was the executive summary. So it's published on the 22nd of January, it's subsequently leaked, but only the executive summary, the first 5 or 6 pages. The synopsis of the rest of the report, which may have run to 200-300 pages. And we believe the reason is because if they dispute it, the leak party may say, well, here's the rest of it, guys. With your signature, your initials, you were CC'd, you commented here, you contributed these paragraphs here, you were the editor for chapter 17 because that's your specialist field, you were the primary writer. There's only so many lies that you can tell simultaneously. They would be discredited. They could perhaps deny it, but they wouldn't be able to. Sooner or later, one of the authors would have said, you would have felt caught out. Like I was caught out in an interview when a woman from Germany said to me, oh, you took so-and-so hunting, and it was meant to be a confidential thing, not advertised. I didn't know how to respond, and she said, trust me, there's been a leak, we know X, Y, and Z. So I couldn't deny it, could I? But anyway, I ended up sorting her out properly. I'm digressing now, right? She said, how can you go hunting? It's so bad, killing the little Bambis, it's terrible, blah, blah, blah. I said, I have enough contacts to take you to a slagparlor, an abattoir, for you to see how those animals suffer. Trust me, the animal that famous politician destroyed suffered far less than a cow standing in a press gang for half an hour, smelling the blood and the fear. You know, there's an odor associated with fear. Smelling the terror of the cow being slaughtered 20 or 30 ahead of it. It's beyond traumatizing. She said, well, it doesn't matter, because I'm a vegan, I think she said. And I sat there, and we were kind of diagonally 45 degrees apart from one another. I was sitting on a big log, and she was sitting on a large boulder with a divot in it. A comfortable little seating plaque for her. And as I was sitting there, this all happened in the span of about 10 seconds. I said, Marlena, those aren't leather shoes, a leather belt, and a leather handbag, are they? Man, she didn't say a word. She picked up her papers, and you know, girls, I hope this doesn't sound crass, girls doing PE at school, at a certain age, they're very self-conscious, right? They run like this, self-conscious of their development, chest development. She did exactly that. She picked up her papers and her clipboard and her handbag and her pens and pencils and rubber and ruler, whatever, and put them under her arms like that and waddled away and said to me, I do not want to talk about this anymore. So, they didn't dispute it, in our opinion, because they didn't want to really, really be humiliated through the full exposure of this thing. So, where does that leave us? In this executive summary, the Rand Corporation talks about how at the midterm elections we cannot afford to fail. We cannot afford to lose. We must do whatever it takes, including destroying the Nord Stream pipeline, attacking Russia, or getting involved in the war. But really to the point, really to the point, stimulating the war between Russia and Germany. And there's a lot more to the reasoning. You might not be able to easily understand, well, how are the two connected? But their logic was not flawed. Wicked, but not flawed. And that's what you're seeing here now, guys. You're seeing that play out. You're seeing the hammer and the scorecard playing out. You're seeing the transition integrity project playing out. You're seeing this Joe Biden as a Trojan horse for Kamala Harris for a very particular reason. She is a specific personality who's required at this time in history to lead the United States of America into hell. And you are seeing the almost impossible loss of the Republicans of this election. It wasn't possible, but with the cheating, it has become possible. Now, I'll tell you something. This is a bit of a secret. I don't like to... I'm very free with knowledge. I once got a promotion and I left a workshop floor, you know, lots of big company, 320 something staff, 330. And I'd worked for a couple of years with the black guys on the workshop floor, and I got this huge promotion, an unbelievable promotion. And on my last day, a little posse of these guys came up to me and said, look, we know you're going on to bigger and better things. But we just want to say to you, thank you. You were the one white guy in this company who gave us everything, gave us all of your knowledge, shared, helped us, explained and taught. And the one guy was in tears. And I said, oh, no problem. And I'm like that. But up to a point. With all things in life, up to a point. I'm going to tell you a kind of a secret about the research that I do, the work that I do. It's not an enormous secret, and many of you will know about it already, because I know a lot of you follow this stuff as well as I do, if not better. But for those who don't, this is something I would probably never have mentioned. I follow a guy called Martin Armstrong of Armstrong Economics, who has a computer called Socrates that specializes in a field that fascinates me no end. If somebody gave me an abundant amount of, a large sum of money for Suidlanders' benefit, one of my priorities would be to buy similar software and hardware, but it's very difficult to get hold of. It's basically risk analysis and scenario planning. And the appeal of it to me is, I used to write a lot of budgets, like for FIFA, for MTV, serious budgets, BMW, big budgets. And the permutations were huge, maybe like 900 line items, and then up to 14 multipliers, multipliers, which are variables. And probably wasn't the best, but I could spend days just perfecting those things. And so how those sorts of computers and their programs work is you put in lots and lots and lots and lots of information. And the more you put in, the better you do, and that appeals to me no end. And you get fantastic results. And over recent months, everybody has been saying that the Republicans are going to win this election. But Martin Armstrong revealed that his computer, called Socrates, he called it Socrates, was telling him that the level of cheating in the US elections is going to be so high that the Republicans will not win, in spite of the fact that even Democrats were saying, oh, it looks like the Republicans are going to take this one. It was picking up, this genius computer was picking up stuff somewhere in all of this information that it processes and consumes about all sorts of things. How much water is being drunk in the country? You think I'm not joking. Multiply that by how many birds the US Ornithological Research Department, how many swallows have flown from Chile for the winter to the USA? I'm being very, very, very serious with you. How's the economy doing? What's the dollar to the rand exchange rate? How many times has this state swung from red to blue and to red? All of that. It was saying. So much so that Martin Armstrong was he was saying to people, I don't know about the computer, I don't know about that. It's never let me down before. I'm probably the most accurate forecaster in the world ever. But the computer's getting a bit weird on me. She's telling me, or he's telling me, given that it's called Socrates, he's telling me that there's no way the Republicans can win. What do I know? And that is the state of affairs at present, late on. Geez, I'm going to be hard pressed for this interview. Late on Wednesday, I beg your pardon, Wednesday the 9th of November, after roughly 24 hours since the US election was held. 21 hours. And that's about it, guys. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please like, share and subscribe, and yeah, we'll keep talking about this stuff. It's unbelievable. We are living in interesting times. Of that there is no doubt. All right, then. Goodbye and God bless you. Bye-bye.